Okay, so next up is the canopy. So with this, we've got a usual thing of like, we've got a center seam we need to take care of, and obviously we need to polish it up and then mask it. So what we're going to do step by step and work our way through and show you in detail how we're going to do it. So usual thing, we're going to need a set of sanders. All right, so for this particular one, we've got the green Flory Models one. It's got the green bar in the middle. That is the very finest one we do. Okay, we've got some sponges. We've got our standard blue sponge, okay, which is, you know, around about 220 grit. It's great for doing your sort of standard styrene work. We've also got the black polisher, okay, which has got one on the back here, which is around about the 220, but the thing is, it's in a water-based one as well. Okay, it can be used water, submerged, anything you like, and then it's got like a wet and dry paper on the top, which is around about the sort of 600 grit, all right, which is great for polishing up. Then we got this guy. Now, this big bad boy here is the king for this. This will turn anything into a mirror. I don't care what it is, it'll do anything. So it's great on styrene. Okay, so what do we got? We've got the standard type of clear parts, as you can see here on the sprue. So first of all, we've got to remove it. Now, the biggest mistake a lot of people make is they cut very close, like in here, to the actual part. Now the trouble is, if you've got it where the actual tab is into the or off angle, something else like that, it can actually put stress on the canopy itself. So when you cut it, it puts a fracture into it. Now these guys here, you might see have got quite big lumps, all right, very close. So ideally you wouldn't want them in the ideal world like this, because what can happen is, because it's so close, you can actually fracture it, all right. Normally you'd have a thinner tab coming off, and I would always advise cutting as far away from the actual part as possible and sanding it. So we're going to do the same here. So what I'm going to do is actually cutting downwards, all right, not cutting across because I don't want to put stress there. We're actually cutting downwards on a diagonal. This way it should release it quite easily from it. The other thing as well, don't wiggle. If you wiggle it, what can happen is, obviously you put stress on this and then it can crack as well. Now, getting into this guy, again, I'm cutting it as far from the part as possible, leaving a little bit of a tab, all right, and then we have the part actually off. But you might see down the middle here, we've got a center seam running right down there. So if we just repeat for the nose one, okay, so again, cutting off that edge, then we're going to come into this edge. And again, this is put in practice. You see here that crack at the beginning, you don't want that, and then that cutting away. So all the time you're cutting the part this off of this, not this off of that, if you know what I mean, because this you can put stress on. You might see we've got some little sharp edges that we need to take care of. Okay, so this is where the fine one comes in. You don't want to come in here with something too aggressive, because obviously you can sand them off. But before you do this, when you're handling your part like this, I have cracked canopies more times than I'd like to remember, because I've handled them like this. You're not going to crack it holding onto it, but when you're putting stress across, this bends in slightly and then you end up with a big crack in the middle. So what I do advise is you get yourself something like this. Okay, this is standard white tack. I've got a big block of it here. Warm it up before you put it in there. Don't stick it in there cold, because if you put it in there cold, what's going to happen is it's actually going to physically push, put stress, crack, and away you go. And let's face it, a cracked canopy is a dead canopy. You cannot fix it. Once it's happened, that is your lot, okay? You can't just go back and say, oh, a little bit of gloss over the top, nobody will see it. You are not going to get rid of that crack ever again, all right? So it's in there permanently. So it's always worth taking your time, spending a few minutes putting this in. So warming this up first, because it will just conform better once it's in there and everything else. What we're going to do, just going to put this in and just going to give it a gentle nudge in here. Then the idea being you're sort of pushing it slightly to the side. You need a little bit more, okay. And then what's going to happen is this is going to go in and it's going to conform on the inside here. So when we are in here pushing around and all the rest of it, it's not going to have a problem absorbing the stress, because to be honest, this canopy is very thin, very, very flimsy, okay? And also I can hold it now top and bottom like this, instead of holding it like this, which is putting pressure on the canopy, and you're better holding it like this because you're going to have no problem. All right, so usual thing, placing this guy on here, gently going 90 degrees to it, okay? So you're sort of going upwards motion, and we're just going to sand it off until it becomes uniform with the rest. Okay, a quick feel, making sure you're all happy and it's good. That one's fine. And we're doing one at a time. We're not trying to do all three. We're literally doing one at a time. Just poke that in a little bit. Okay, and we're just going to come out this guy. Okay, and as soon as you sand everywhere and you get a little bit of raised everywhere, all right, and we're just going to do this guy as well. Okay. And again, that's all done together, all nice. And we've lost that edge with no pressure. Okay, so what we're going to do is exactly the same to this guy everywhere, but as I say, we're going to conform on this one because it's a little bit better. Okay, now we've got this center seam, which you can't see too well in here now because we've got it covered, but we have got that center seam which has got, you can hear it on there. So what we need to do is remove that. It's also on the bars front and rear. We've even got a little bit of flash on this rear part, you can see sticking up just there. All right, so what we're going to do is going to take it all off, then we're going to come in and put this edge back in afterwards. All right, so don't worry about it too much at the moment, but to start with, we're coming in 90 degrees and going on. All right, so you can just come along, and what we're looking for is it to go dull everywhere. We don't want it just dull, you know, in one little area. We want it all to be dull absolutely everywhere. So you can go through, all right, and then as we know, you can pack these on your trousers and clean them out like new, just to keep the file nice and clean and working at optimum performance. And let the file do the work. Don't be going in there pushing down on it. Just rub it across until it is all flat everywhere. Also, just use a slight rocking motion once you've got that first edge down, all right? Then when we've got that first edge down, we're just going to come in and we're just going to do those corners a little bit, just like that. Okay, so we're going to look across now, making sure the seam is all gone, okay? So now that seam is all gone and we're all absolutely fine and we're happy with it. Okay, what we can actually do then is come in. So we're going to come in with the blue one. Now, ideally, you don't want to use a brand new one like this because it is a little bit coarse. So I've got one of my older ones, which has had a little bit of work, okay? And it's just taken the edge off it. If you have got a new one, and you know, go and attack a brick with it for 5 minutes and you'll be fine, okay? And then all we're going to do, the sponge will now conform the surface, and it's going to give it a curve. It'll stop it getting a flat spot, but we're still rocking it slightly side to side. Okay. Okay, and with this guy, we're just going to go 90 degrees to it, because at the moment we're just focusing on the actual cut itself. And now you can see it's got a nice dull edge to it, just like that. Okay. So what we're going to do is, because I need to show you, I'm going to remove this, but you won't. You'll always leave that part in there, okay? But I'm going to do it without so you can see what's going on. Okay, so we've got a nice dull edge down there like that. And what you're looking for is for any trace of that center seam to be in there. So if you can still see a little white line or anything else like that, then you need to carry on. But I'm happy with that. That's pretty much there. In fact, I can see a tiny little bit of it just there still. So we just lightly, and again, we're not pushing. We are just literally letting the file, or the sponge in this case, do all the work, okay? That can get on there and take care of it. Okay, so that's that one on. Then we're going to come in with our black one, but we're not going to use the gritty side, we're using the polishing side, and we're going to use it wet. So we're just going to wet this down here, and what we're going to do is coming in with a circular motion, and we're just going to run all the way over this. So you're just trying to do it like a bit like a random orbital sander. Okay, so you go along, wet it, and what we're doing now is we've taken out the center seam, and now we're trying to repair all the damage that was caused by the sanding. Okay, so that's all we're doing. So we're just going to rub around this guy, and then we're just going to do down this edge. Okay, so that's all the way over there. And that top edge. Okay, now I'm going to switch around to the other end, okay, where it's dry. I'm just going to pop it round, and again, very lightly, letting it do all the work. Just popping around it all like that. Okay, wetting the finger, and we're just going to wipe this all away. Okay, so we're just getting rid of the dust and everything that's down on there. And that leaves us with a cloudy but perfect seam. Okay, now this is where this guy comes in. Now this guy here is our polisher. Okay, now this is, I wouldn't say special, but it is specially designed for this type of work. This actually is a fabric on the surface. It's not like, you know, a traditional polisher. This is actually a fabric based system that is specially designed specifically for polishing acrylic. Okay, so it's actually designed for doing actually aircraft windows and stuff like that. Okay, but also it does this extremely well. So to start with, we're going to wet it. Okay, we're using the blue side, and exactly the same, we're just going to come in and we're going past where we had that dryness. Okay, so that scuff line, we're going well past it on both sides. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the top half and then we'll do the bottom. And what you're doing now is taking down to the next level where it's absolutely fine. I'm just being very careful on this because it could crack. Okay, as I say, you will have this in. I'm doing it so you can see the differences of this working through, all right? And you're going to keep going until it dries out and starts to squeak. And when it starts to squeak, it's because the surface underneath is getting very well polished. Okay, you just sort of start to hear it now. Okay, so it's going along very nicely, and we're just going to switch ends now. Okay, so you can see it still cloudy, all right. And then all we're going to do then is we're going to switch over to the white side. Again, we're going to wet it. And the wetness just makes it more even. We're just going to come in now with our polishing side. Now this is the one that looks like a piece of rubber, but this is the clever bit. This is the one which is going to do all the work and is going to take your cloudy canopy and make it like completely new. Okay. Right, so we're just going to run over it. And you can start to see it's going clear, bearing in mind we have got a little bit of crud underneath. Grab a cloth for a minute. Right, a little cloth here. Okay, clean the underside and the top. And you can start to see it's going clear. Alright, so then what we do, we just keep working at it. And you're just moving it around circular motions as you work your way around the canopy. And then obviously you can just go singly directions and all the rest of it, and bearing in mind my hand's warm underneath. Okay, you can start to see, starting to see where it's clearing now, going clear. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet it. And what you're listening for is that squeak. That squeak means we're doing very, very well. Because if it's squeaking, it means it's got a perfect finish to it. As I say, just making sure you go past where you were and all those areas. Okay, and you can see you've got no hint of that in there. Still got the back half, you can see the difference now. And that's becoming absolutely crystal clear, and you're not going to need to dip this either, because the thing is, we do this back in, you can come in and you can dip them and all the rest of it, but the thing is when you dip them it's very difficult for masking. This will be absolutely fine. Okay, so we're just going to come out. Okay, and it will just go from cloudy to clear in a matter of moments. And to be honest, this polisher here is one of my older ones. So you wet it. By wetting it, it just helps it slide better over and it stops it scratching, and also it'll push any imperfections, dust, grit, all those things out of the way. And then we can just polish up. And there is our canopy with no scratches in it. You've got distortion in there, but that's part of the canopy itself. Okay, and we have got a bit of dust and fingerprints in here, but we have lost our scratched canopy. Okay, and then to finish off, if you wanted to, you can take something like Tamiya's polishing compound, which is very good stuff. And what I like to do is just as a final thing, I'll pop that down there. Then we'll use the white side of this and we'll polish with it. Okay, on here, because it's best of both worlds. This has got it's designed purely for polishing hardened acrylic, and it will just come in, and then you wait for the magic squeak to start to happen. Okay, I know you're all waiting for the canopy to break, so am I. This is why you should definitely have your area up in the back here. But this is just the fine compound, or the finishing compound for polishing, and this works absolutely great. Okay, because you can put that around, and then let's just grab our cloth here. Okay, and we have one polished canopy. So that's your seamless canopy. Now obviously you'd work a little bit harder at that. It needs a little bit more time, just a little bit more of a polish over to make that absolutely crystal clear. But hopefully you can see we've got no hint of anything in there whatsoever. All right, so this edge is on both sides. To be honest, I've managed to save them. Normally what I would actually do is just put a fine cut just down there, just to give it an edge and everything else like that. All right, so that is it. It is as simple as doing that for polishing your canopy. All right, that way now you don't have to dip it and do all those things and everything else. So masking it up, two options. You can either do the thin trick, okay, so which is to me a little bit laborious and all the rest of it. You go around with a thin masking tape like this one and go all the way round, okay, or you can use a 6mm and drag it. 6mm is great because it sort of bends a little bit, and to be honest, we're waiting on Tamiya's new bendable series, all right, but we're hoping this one will be good, because this one you take into account the shapes of actually how everything is. This one's got a long shape all the way around, so in theory I can probably do it in one. So the way I do it is grab a very long piece of tape, a lot more than you would ever need, okay, go past where you're starting, so you're in that edge, okay, and then stretch and just run it down the line into an area, okay, and then stretch. And this one, to be honest, is quite faded, so it's a good one to do it on, okay, and you sort of stretch, and then we're going to start crimping on the inside as it goes around, okay, so you stretch and crimp, and just make sure that this ruffling is on the inside, okay. So you're just going to go a little bit, nail goes across a bit more, a little bit, nail goes a bit more, and you can crimp with it all onto the inside. You see, it's just a case of pulling off, going back, pulling off, going back, pulling off, go back. Okay, and that is going to come down. We're going to come to the front. Now this guy down here, I don't know, actually you may even be able to put the crimp down into this guy, into the corner, rolling it round, back on itself. Maybe not, maybe we can. Okay, gonna be close. 50-50 there. You can either cut it or roll it this way, and then this guy is going to come over the top, and then my usual way of doing it would be sharp scissors to the inside, slight cut on the diagonal so it comes up, and then what you can do is actually hold this up to the light. You can see the curve of it, and go in there with a very sharp blade and just curve it around and take it off, and then it's just a case of filling in. Obviously you can use wider tapes, or you can do it somewhat like this. I'll get this guy off. Okay, so you can actually then, a couple of options, you could either go over the top or you can come around this way. So you sort of go around here, pressing down, and then same thing again, just come back on itself. That's that top half, and then all right, better luck than judgment. Okay, in. One other little tip is to make yourself a handle, because obviously sometimes when you're having to place this down, if you can't get your fingers around it, so actually what you can do is you can actually put the tape a little bit like this. This is so, just stick another bit just to cover that hole. This is so purely you've got something to hold on to. So if you did have to place it quite precisely, you've got something to get hold of, so you can actually place it down and do it just like that. Okay, so that's it. That's really dead simple. Just mask that one up. Really quick job just to do. The front one, exactly the same. Obviously you take the seam out and all the rest of it, and I would do the same. I'll just show you how I would do this one. Literally place the tape in the front. Okay, and then it's just a case of working this away along. This is another good example because you can't actually see the, you know, I have to take this one off obviously to do the center seam, but just to show you guys, it is that thing of just pulling and just running it around. And to be honest, I think this is quicker than using a mask set, because a mask set can be really slow you down. Okay, but that gives you a curved edge just like that all the way around. Same thing as we did before, right over the top, and then mask it again. A nice pinch area on the front, because then otherwise, if like this one's a particularly thin canopy, as you can see, if you did then start pinching it together and you're seating it down, it isn't going to go well. But if you've got a little handle like this guy, you can literally just come along, place it down where you want it, and job's done, and you don't have a problem. All right, just makes it easier to handle with those on. So that's it, easy masking, no problem at all. So next up, you can just fix it to your aircraft and you're good to go.